Oh my goodness, Satillionaires. Okay, so we're about to listen to John's episode here today. Really great episode. I want you to make sure that you don't have anything breakable around you, no glass, nothing that you could hurt yourself with. Because when you hear what John has to say about fiat currency, about US dollars, about how inflation is making all of us go bankrupt 3 times or more in our life without us even knowing, you're going to be enraged. I'm so angry at the fiat monetary system that I have a headache after talking to John.
Yeah.
But we need you guys to strap in for this thing and get ready to go, because by the time you're done listening to this episode, you will be done with your silly little slips of paper forever, and you will be stacking your first sat. So without further ado, here's John. Welcome to Sat Chats, the Bitcoin podcast where we chat about sats. Sats are the smallest part of a Bitcoin, the same way pennies are the smallest part of a dollar. With Sat Chats, we are building the world's biggest Bitcoin welcome center to serve as your gateway to generational wealth. So if you are new to Bitcoin, we want to chat about sats with you. Head to satchats.com to grab your slot in the studio today. I'm your host, Stuart, Bitcoin Maxi, who wears prescription sunglasses to protect you and your loved ones from my Bitcoin laser eyes.
And I'm your co-host, Chris, founder and CEO of Ithaca Hummus, proud multi-coiner and Bitcoin smash buyer.
So we want you to smash that like and subscribe the same way Chris smash buys Bitcoin.
Did it yesterday.
He did it yesterday. He felt a huge amount of relief. The steam pressure was building up, and he was like, I have to smash buy. I can't take it anymore. And now he's happy. Meanwhile, I'm just buying a little bit each week. It's all good. So today, we have for you Satillionaires out there listening, our friend John, who is from New Mexico. He is an entrepreneur. He is an educator. He has written a book for beginners on Bitcoin, crypto, cryptocurrency, NFTs. So today we're going to be hearing his Bitcoin story. And we're also going to be talking about the impact of the halving. Mm-hmm. But before we do, we want everyone to get to know you a little bit.
Well, hi, gentlemen, and thanks for having me on. Chris and Stuart, it's a pleasure. And so my backstory a little bit. Let's see, I started out as an engineer. And I started out in the big driving force for me in life was like most people, rock and roll music, just popular music. And so I started, I had degrees in electrical engineering from MIT, and then a degree that I made myself in electronic music and media production from Boston University. And my initial job, I worked for a synthesizer company called ARP, and they made the musical instruments that, like on those old like Who albums and Stevie Wonder and all those ones where people were using synthesizers originally. And from there, I worked in recording studios, and I was just a big technical guy. I loved the tech of how all this electronics was coming into the music. And I ended up working in a bunch of famous rock and roll recording studios. And then I went to work for a company that made the equipment, the professional audio and video equipment, Ampex, and they were out in Silicon Valley, Redwood City. So that was my first introduction to Silicon Valley. And then from there, I got poached to ABC Television back when there was 3 networks, and they controlled all of broadcasting. And I was a broadcast engineer, designed and built facilities for the network, and my clients were sports and news. So I was doing all, Olympics and, stuff like that, Monday Night Football and World Series, all big sporting events, big, political conventions and space shuttle launches, all that kind of fun stuff. Then I decided to go back to bail from that and go back to B school. And I went to Wharton and got my MBA. I wanted to learn about business because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't like, working for other people and all. And so when you say generational wealth and what Bitcoin represents to me, it's that economic freedom to do what you want. I started that through entrepreneurship, doing my own stuff and working that way. And so from there, I started a bunch of companies, took two of them public, was a public company CEO and CFO for like 15 years, and then started teaching too in business school programs, and realized right away that those business school programs are kind of out of date and taught by PhDs and things that really had never run a business or understood business that much, and was teaching economics as part of that too. And around this time, Bitcoin started. We had this incredible, crash in 2007, 2008, the financial crash. And coming out of that, it seemed like the whole system was rigged. And that from there, Satoshi wrote his paper, everything started to happen. And I was a kind of a late comer to the deal, though. It took me, as I was looking at it, like, what is the actual value here? How is it created? What's going on? And much to my regret, later on, I didn't get in early. And but when it finally dawned on me, and it really took time for it to get traction too. I think for me to think that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and the blockchain and all, while being incredibly intellectually fascinating, and made me think about what is what's the meaning of the transactional aspects of money and currencies, and what's the store of value ideas of money and gold and things like that, and how did this fit in? It took a while for it to click with me, but once it did, then I was all in.
John, when you say early, where kind of give us a timeline on that?
Well, I started hearing about Bitcoin and things in the early 2010s, maybe 2012, 13, in that way, and people started asking me about it, and in my courses, and I was pretty dismissive at first. It's just like, this is some sort of fad, it's going to come and go, and but by the time I actually got into investing in it and all, it was more like after in the second to the last big peak there, maybe 2018, 19, 20, in those ranges there.
Okay.
And then really invested in this last drop, when it was down about, below 20,000 there. Then I thought, this is a good, time. I could see the value in it by then. I'd already become a true believer. And then at those kind of prices seemed good. And it's proved out now that, it's great. I ended up taking Gary Gensler's. I don't know if you guys taken Gary Gensler's course. It's free on at MIT when he taught at MIT before he was the head of the SEC. On crypto and Bitcoin. Really fascinating. I thought he was going to be more pro crypto and Bitcoin than he has been as a SEC, leader. But now it seems like we got administration in that's really pro crypto. So.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a nice bump for us all, right? Nice ride.
Yeah, 100%.
And to your point, I mean, people who are getting into a frenzy about this dip, someone like you with a cost base is below 20,000. It's like, what dip? Who cares? Do you watch that price very closely anymore, or are you, has it become just more like a, that's your store of value and you're all good?
Exactly. It's the store of value. I'm not a day trader. I don't speculate in that kind of way and follow it really, closely. And you're right. I mean, if it goes into the 90,000s from over 100,000 or something, it's like, what? That doesn't matter to me, because I know it's going to come back. If anything, buy those. I would call them micro dips now or something, and the whole idea of, just like in traditional investing, of, like you say, buy a little each week, dollar cost averaging kind of thing, where you're riding the whatever it's up and down. When it's down, you're still buying, and then when it goes up, you're still buying, and then your average cost basis is quite good over time. Just same thing with investing in stocks, basically.
You know what's interesting? Yesterday, so I bought some Bitcoin yesterday, and I use Bitcoin well to transact. And the lady that helps me there, her name is Chantel. So shout out to Chantel. And she mentioned to me that previously, when these dips would happen, there were mostly panic sellers who were trying to sell as fast as they could. But for this little micro dip that we're in right now, she's seeing it's way more people trying to buy right now. So it's almost like there's been this intellectual shift that's happened. So people are recognizing this as an opportunity to buy, not scaring themselves out of owning Bitcoin.
Well, and that's really interesting. Yeah, the flow of funds and how that's changed. And so if you have that kind of money flowing in, then you have these supports, right? At those kind of, if you're looking at sort of graphs and things like that, and if you're a chartist, and and so there's that support, and you can see that support coming in, and that's very favorable. People. There's also those kind of things. It's not trying to time the market, but it's time in the market. And it's really, that's why I like to hold. I'm a hodler. As far as I'm just going to hold and buy and hold, because as you said, generational wealth, is really the key factor. And I love that idea of passing something on to the future generations. To my kids, my grandkids, all that kind of stuff, so that they can be up. And I think that Bitcoin, I'm a very firm believer that can be a wonderful, holder of value for future generations. And I hope that someday they'll say, wow, that guy back in the past really, really did us well. And we're all, set. I've been thinking about that lately a lot, just realizing that, my gosh, we have, each of us should be really grateful to the past generations that allowed us to be here, because there is a direct lineage, obviously, or else we wouldn't be here, right? Of us back to people in the Middle Ages, to, Roman times, prehistoric times. We have a direct lineage back to all those people that really busted their butts to survive and scrape out a living and navigate through wars and pestilence and famines or what else to allow us to be here and to survive and thrive. And we have a pretty cushy world that we live in, and it's thanks to them. And I want to kind of play my part and pay it forward. And I think that Bitcoin is a great, like you say, store of value for that type of scenario. So that's why I think and just intellectually, it's a wonderful thing to be involved in.
Mm-hmm.
It allows us to think a little bit beyond ourselves. Unless it's like, oh man, I'm gonna just keep day trading and make, and you can do that too, and make a living that way and all. And that's a fine way to think about it too, if you want. But that gets highly risky, and I like to take this sort of like long-term view of the arc of civilization and generations. And I think it's an inflection point in civilization. I mean, it really is. You said the F word, fiat currencies, and suddenly we have this tool, that we can actually, circumvent that, and with our vote say we're not going to buy into that completely, and we have an alternative now. We didn't before. It's amazing.
So the textbooks will say John was a man from the 21st century, and he managed to buy enough Bitcoin, and he was a legendary historical figure who created generational wealth for hundreds of years to come. I mean, I feel the same way, John. I don't see myself leaving any type of legacy on this earth. I don't see myself inventing something incredible. I don't see myself exploring somewhere new. I don't see myself publishing, a seminal work. I'm just a dad I've got a wife. I've got 2 kids. I want to hang out with them. I want to make memories with them. Before Bitcoin, I just thought, well, I suppose I'll work my job and get my paycheck and try to put some of this money into a retirement, try to put some of this money into a college savings plan. But I also think I'm just going to kind of have to work my whole life until I'm dead. So maybe I should try to spend some of the money now on some vacations, take some time off, because I don't think I'm going to retire at 65. Bitcoin has changed my approach. Bitcoin makes me believe that I can stay humble and stack sats. I can buy $54 of Bitcoin every Monday morning. And over the coming decades, I'll be able to provide for my family, for my kids, my grandkids, maybe even my great grandkids. Who knows? It just makes me feel hopeful to save in Bitcoin.
Stuart, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's a really eloquent way to put it. I mean, yeah, before, right, we were caught in this sort of trap of, being on that hamster wheel, and we have to work for a living and pay our bills. And that cycle just kept going. And especially, having a wife, having children, having a family that then pulls you out of yourself in ways too. Suddenly you're not thinking just about all thoughts about yourself, but you have these other people, and then if you start, that you care about and love, and you start broadening that out too more and more. And I think Bitcoin is it's really true. It's allowed us to lighten up and see a path out. Suddenly, we're trapped in a mine, right? And all of a sudden, you see some daylight. You can start scrambling towards the light, and it's a great thing. And just that psychological lift. Never mind the economic side of it, which is really important stuff. Just wonderful. One of the things that really, it still gets me to this day is, there's sort of almost like I don't know what you'd call it, a sci-fi or a Marvel, a comic book element, of this anonymous Satoshi writing this paper and reading that paper and this is so cool. This is such a brilliant idea. And it is a brilliant idea because it's really taken hold now and has proven itself to create trillions of dollars of value out of thin air. It's a product of mind, just a product of mind. And that could do that. And that paper and that the anonymity has remained is just, to me, it's mind blowing. It's just such a cool, what do they call that when the legend of when something starts, and it's just a great, in the midst of time and a mystery, the origin myth, is just absolutely so cool.
It's like mythological at this point. And
Yeah.
My favorite, most recent idea that I saw on the internet about who is Satoshi is that he was a time traveler.
Right.
He fully,
who knows? Yeah.
He fully just came back in time, hit us with Bitcoin, and then he dipped. You know what I mean?
It seems unreasonable that a single human being could have done this.
No, absolutely. And it does seem like it could be somebody from the future because it is one of these inflection points. And yeah, it's unreasonable that even a group then could have thought of this, but that one person could have thought of this and then kept their anonymity and have that, like you talked about being humble, the humility to not say, hey, it was me. I designed this thing. I made everybody, I made all this wealth. I did all this stuff. Now, praise me in some way. You'd think that, it would be very difficult for a human to not want to have that type of gratification. So it seems like some sort of otherworldly, entity that did this. And, it's just fascinating to go back and read that paper and say, like, really, these words, like 8 pages of words could have this kind of impact rolling forward and like a snowball, building and building and giant, it just speaks to the truth of it. And even understanding that, the technology was just at the place where this could happen. And you could actually have blockchains that could be verified by a network of computers, and that would keep evolving at Moore's law, and keep going up this accelerated curve of, more computing power at less cost, doubling every 18 months or whatever, this exponential rate, that to foresee that the infrastructure was in place and it was the right time to seed this idea and then let that idea take off on these exponential curves of technological growth, and then adoption would follow. It's just incredible.
John, I feel like, having talked to many, many pre-coiners at this point, one of the widely held criticisms or things that hold people back from getting into Bitcoin or believing in Bitcoin is actually the idea of Satoshi and the risk that they assign to what happens if this person all of a sudden comes out of the woodwork, and they're afraid it's going to go to zero, right? What do you say to people who have that concern?
Well, it would be really tough, I think, even for somebody to come out now and say they did it, because it would be, how could they go back and have all the receipts, the proof to say they were? Because lots of people step forward and say, it's me. And, it'd be like, right. And obviously, I think at this point, it's so much bigger than any one person. And even if somebody came out and said, it was me and I really didn't mean it, or whatever they could say, it's like, hey, this thing is, an edifice now that is so large, and has so much momentum behind it and all, that it's, I think that is, and it may be a concern for some folks, but, like they say with courage isn't like having no fear. It's operating in the face of fear, and so even if you thought that, you still want to diversify. I think if you had any kind of thoughts about investing, diversification is key. We look at the world, look at the crazy stuff that's happening, across countries, globally. Globalization may be fracturing. We're going to have a multipolar world. What's going to happen in the future? Well, to have some store of value that can kind of transcend all of those issues, was really important. We have, if you keep your wealth in fiat currencies, the inflation rate, I mean, that is baked in. They always say, the Federal Reserve, they're numbered for the best. You have to keep expanding that monetary supply in order to have enough currency for everybody to do their transactions, and you have to have growth. And so their growth is 2% a year. So 2% a year, your ice cube of money is melting, and even if they're target spot on, that's what they want. They're not saying no inflation. They're saying we want to have inflation, but controlled at this level. So your money is eroding even under the best of circumstances. And with inflation the way it's been running now, and it's still continuing to run, even with the change of government here, we're still having tons of inflation. And so that's not a good place to put your money. You need to put it in assets. Well, what kind of assets are there? There's stocks and bonds, and as inflation happens, they go up just because, or if there's more money chasing the same assets. With real estate, same thing. It's going up because there's more money chasing this limited amount of assets. So if you want to have your money invested in any way to try to escape inflation, then you have really three choices. You have real estate, you have equities in the market or bonds, and then you have now, luckily, a third, a new asset class. So why wouldn't you put some money in that asset class? Maybe you're not going to be an all-in kind of person and put all your chips in the middle of the table into Bitcoin, but you should have some chips in there, just to be a sensible and reasonable investor. And it could be the thing that really, explodes in your portfolio that makes it all worthwhile. But you have to have that kind of diversification, spread out your bets so that you're, limiting your risk and you're increasing your luck surface for big things to happen.
So maybe you can help me understand this, John, because it can't be this simple. If the government wants a controlled inflation rate of 2% per year, I mean, doesn't that mean in 50 years I've lost 100% of my purchasing power? Or does it not
Yes.
quite work like that? Or it
No,
does.
even sooner because there's compounding. So yeah, if you just did the straight math, so yeah, that's the thing that unlimited growth and driving that unlimited growth by controlled inflation or uncontrolled inflation, you know, the money, yeah, you're right. If you start looking into the future, it's like, well, how can it's not sustainable. It can't go on forever. So you're absolutely right, Stuart. You know, it's you look into the future and it's like, my gosh, yeah, my money will be, you know, we see it now, right? You have people that say, oh, back in the 1960s, I could buy a pack of gum for 5 cents, you know, and I wore an onion on my belt because that was the style at the time. But, you know, people complain, you know, things, things are, you know, cheap back then, they say. But really, it was the same value because it was harder to get that amount of money. So it's kind of the same. But now, you know, it costs you, you know, whatever, you know, $2 to buy a pack of gum, and it used to be a nickel, whatever it is. We can see the inflation. We can see it every year. You go to the store and you look at eggs, or you look at, you know, how much it costs to buy a house, you know, and how everybody's crowded out of all these markets now because their income hasn't gone up as much as prices have. So they're, you know, they keep trying to, you know, meet these receding goal lines, you know, the mirage of this receding coastline you're going to get to. If I just save this money, then in 10 years, I'll be able to put a down payment on a house. Oh, the house prices have doubled and I don't have enough money. And, you know, so it's really difficult to find ways to, you know, we have this American dream and we talk about all that stuff about how we can, you know, through our hard work and effort and meritocracy, we can get ahead in the, you know, in the world. And this country gives us those kind of, you know, in other countries too, you know, give us those kind of opportunities. That's true to an extent, but there's also a lot rigged in the favor of people that are already wealthy you know, how do you go to an elite university if you can't, you know, pay $100,000 a year? You know, you can't go to like Harvard or Yale or something like that and then get into that tier of all those people, you know, unless you have that kind of money. So it is totally elitist. I mean, even the, you know, the legal system is elitist. You have to have big time attorneys in order to fight legal cases. And if you don't have 500 grand to plunk down and lawyer up, you know, you're in big trouble. So there's a lot of things that are stacked against us in this land of the free and brave that I think Bitcoin represents at least a hope, like you said, you know, a hope for a way out that lightens our spirit and then allows us to go forward, you know, instead of feeling like the burden and oppressiveness of like, I'm just going to, you know, be a grunt sweating it out until, you know, the institutions drain all the blood out of this turnip and then I'm going to be discarded and that's going to be my life. That, you know, that doesn't leave us with much room for having a light, optimistic spirit. And you have to have a light, optimistic spirit to allow any kind of ideation to bubble up that then maybe you could, you know, use to also navigate out through entrepreneurship or whatever else, you know. So it allows us to feel that we have a way out of this system that's already been entrenched, we've been born into, and it's rigged against us.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, I love that point, by the way. You have to have a sense of optimism and excitement for the future in order for entrepreneurship ideas to where else do they take root? I mean, it doesn't work. And Stuart, I'm sorry to cut you off there, but what did you call yourself a few episodes ago? A naughty worker?
A naughty little work goblin.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and
goblins.
Yeah, I mean, because let's face it, we get into when we are all naughty little work goblins when it comes to it. You know, it's like you know, the people in charge. If we work for a company, first of all, no company hires you unless you're making a surplus of value that can accrue to them. They have to pay you less than you are making in value because the surplus has to go to them. Otherwise, they're not going to hire you, right? So if you want to capture that surplus, you have to work for yourself. You can't work for anyone else. And when you do work for someone else, we get into this dysfunctional world where the employer is going to pay you just enough so you don't quit, and you're going to work just enough so they don't fire you. And that's a really dysfunctional place to be, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Man, and I tell you, John, if if it depreciates faster than 50 years because of compounding interest, right? Let's call it every 40 years, this 2% inflation leads to a 100% loss of purchasing power. And I live to be 120 because I eat carrots and dipping in my Ithaca hummus over here with Bonzo behind me. And I get my, I get my Norwegian or Swedish free Lufsliv. I go outside, I walk around, etc. Then that means I'm over here, naughty little work goblin, doing just enough to not get fired by my employer. And the money I'm trying to stack up to quit working goes through 3 successive rounds of becoming worthless.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And that's under the best of situations if they could keep, inflation at 2%. But we haven't been able to control inflation. It's been running at 5% or whatever. And, you can't really trust even the official numbers because they don't really tell us exactly what's going, if it's not to their benefit. So, we're losing a lot of purchasing power. And then also for people in other countries, I mean, a lot of people hoard dollars, and put them under their mattress or something like that so that they can have something that seems like hard currency to them because their local currencies are even, worse, doing much worse than ours. We have a relatively strong currency because we're what all trade is done in is in dollars. So petrodollars and things. So we have a strong currency, but, others don't. And so for them, the rationale is even stronger, I think, to have, a wallet and have some Bitcoin in it, so even all around the world, and that's the beautiful thing about it. It's like all around the world that these things can, people can buy this and do this. It's wonderful, and circumvent their situations.
It's remarkable for many less developed countries to view the US dollar as a sound store of value. And it's simply because in relation to their own nation state paper, it's just a little bit better. It melts just a little bit slower. That ice cube's just a little bit colder. But those of us who they're not living on a US dollar standard. They're living on their own currency standard. So when compared to their currency, it's pretty great. But for those of us like you, John, and like me and like Chris, where we live on a US dollar standard, that's our money. We're like, guys, no, this thing sucks. It's not good. It's not good. We should be using Bitcoin. And so to your point, if you're a satillionaire out there listening and you're not on a US dollar standard and you feel like, hey, these US dollars are so much better than my Argentine peso, they're so much better than my ruble or my rupee, just stop. Get Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is absolutely dunking on the US dollar. So just skip over your US dollar phase and go straight to Bitcoin.
Yeah. And you can also, there's some, nice proxy investments like, Michael Saylor and his company, MicroStrategies, and he's a huge Bitcoin guy, and, put all of his assets of this public company, into Bitcoin, and has done remarkably well. So if you buy that stock, that was another way to, I mean, there's lots of ways that, that Bitcoin is starting to, really, and there's, to infiltrate into more traditional type of markets and convince a lot of more maybe smart, but we're skeptical people, and once they start to get all in too, you can see that this has a lot of chances to really, aggregate up, because there's a fixed amount too. I mean, it is just a limited amount. It's not even like gold or something, like gold has been a store of value, and people think about, well, Bitcoin is ephemeral, but gold is real. But what is gold really? It's a rock. I mean, it's literally just a rock. It's shiny, to the alchemists, and philosophers. It's fascinating because it is incorruptible. It doesn't rust. And so there's really, ideas around it that make it beautiful. But at the end of the day, you can't eat it. You can't live in it. It really doesn't have utility. So that is an argument as gold being a store of value, that goes away. I mean, even money, you look at fiat currencies 100 years ago or 150 years ago, before that, monies were gold or silver coins, and they had to stop putting those in circulation because everybody would chip off a little bit. And if you sliced off a little bit, then you'd melt your own, and then you'd have it. So the coins would diminish in size, but they were, correlated to precious metals. But what are precious metals other than, just rocks anyway? But then we came up with paper money, and people were like, paper money? Oh my God, that's crazy. This is just a piece of paper. It doesn't mean anything. But it represented, this thing, and it was backed by gold again, for a long time, and silver-backed currency. But again, that's just a rock. So all of these concerns about, that Bitcoin isn't tangible are kind of moot, because none of the money is tangible. None of that stuff, that expression of value or transactional wealth is any kind of inherent value. I found the other day, a dime, and I was marveling at this dime, looking at it, I was like, wow, I haven't really seen one of these in probably 10 years, because everything I do, is on credit cards or electronic banking, that kind of stuff too. So already we've made the shift to a completely intangible world of transactions and store of value. So those kind of ideas, if those are holding people back from Bitcoin, when they really think about what store of value and transactional worth is, there are other ideas about this is tangible and this is not, kind of evaporate, really, I think.
It's really interesting to think about the evolution of money over time, and the fact that people do get hung up on Bitcoin not being something that they can touch, but then they are riding on top of this digital fiat system. And it is, I mean, how did we agree to a form of money that loses 100% of its purchasing power every 40 some odd years? Like, where did how did I sign up for that? How did they, I remember being a teenager maybe, or I might even been early university, and I thought I was learning about the world, and I was like, yeah, that's right. 2% inflation is really good. It's really good. And the government has to keep spending money, otherwise things won't work. And I remember my wife years ago, I guess we were like doing some kind of budgeting session. I don't know. But she asked me, how come the government doesn't need a budget, doesn't need to operate under a budget? And I was like, hon, let me explain this to you. Okay. I just got done watching an episode of John Oliver where he explained to me in a British accent that if the government doesn't invest in its country, the country won't do well. It's really important. I watched John Oliver explain to me that the government has to pass all these spending bills to spend money they don't even have in order to keep the schools going and keep the different areas of the economy going. I was like, and therefore, hun, that's why the government must spend money. That's why the government gets to be the only organization on earth that gets to ignore the laws of economy. Right. It's the only entity on earth that gets to ignore the basics of economics. It is insane. It is insane.
It is. Absolutely. And yeah, I remember when I was going to get my MBA, and we talked about economics at first, and they talked about these optimal inflation rates. And I was thinking, like, wow, that means that the money is eroding over time, and that's not sustainable. You can't sustain growth of economy by just, printing more money and letting the value of that, dilute in that way. But that is the plan. And, it works well or stable until it doesn't. At some point, it's not. You can just see that we're on a kind of a house of cards, and that when the tide goes out, you're going to see who's been swimming naked, because it's just going to all fall apart. And
I was thinking about this yesterday, John, where I was like, man, it feels like our monetary system is quicksand, and they've got a pool of quicksand, and they'll see that it's kind of draining out of the bottom too much on the left side of the pool, so they'll dump more sand on top of it. And then they'll see it's kind of dropping out of the right side too quick, so they'll dump some more sand on top of that. Then they'll say, well, dang it, we dumped too much sand on this whole thing. Let's just leave it alone for a while until it drains out. Then they ignore it, and it gets too low. They go, oh, my God, we got to add more sand to this. It's like, it's not stable, to your point. It's not sustainable. It's not real. It's, nobody, it's not based on, they don't actually have this money. They don't actually have these resources.
No. And like you say, they've got these levers that they can control within reason, but it's always reactive, right? And we got to do it. And so it's not sustainable, and it is quicksand. It is not built on a solid foundation, and which it's amazing, 20 years ago, we didn't have an alternative, and now we do. It's amazing.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast yesterday that was talking about quantitative easing, quantitative tightening, like the Federal Reserve, maybe they're like issuing debt out to the banks who might be buying their debt and then putting it on their balance sheet, and then somehow it flows back to the federal. I mean, the chicanery was unable to be understood. And you could just step back and take a look at this and say, there's no way any of this makes sense. Like, any regular person could look at the absolute lattice work of nonsense that has been stitched together in this fiat fabric and say, this would never, ever work on an individual level, on a corporate level, nothing. It just doesn't make any old sense. And I think about Bitcoin, John, I'm like, there will never be quantitative easing with Bitcoin. There will never be quantitative tightening with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an actual form of money. And so either you have it or you do not have it.
Right.
So,
and yeah.
I mean, kind of to go back to what Chris was saying with, the mystery of Satoshi, and, people want to know if he's going to appear out of nowhere and trash Bitcoin. Number one, I think it would be amazing if Satoshi were a time traveler who traveled back in time, made Bitcoin, mined 1 million coins, and then went to the future where he is an absolute fulfrillionaire. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's like, all right, cool. So I made this money in the past. Let me go ahead and jump to 2140 when we're all done mining it. I still have 1 million coins. I now own 1/21 millionth of the world's productivity and value. Let's go. I'm the man. Yeah. Right? That would be amazing. But it would. Even if he weren't a time traveler and he were still out there on Earth today, and he came in and said, you know what, I'm going to do something with my 1 million coins. Number one, can you imagine someone creating or discovering the world's hardest money of all time, letting it build up to this level for 16 years, and then doing something with his 1 million coins to destroy the value of the thing he created? Whoever is out there afraid that Satoshi's going to roll up out of nowhere and destroy his own creation, y'all need to chill and stack some sats. But even if he came and dumped all 1 million of his coins onto the marketplace all at once, that is 5% of the current supply.
Then we could all buy the dip. We'll all buy that dip, like you were saying, Chris. There's more money flowing in now. Yeah,
I'll buy Satoshi's coins. If he wants to dump his coins on the market, I'll buy him. Chris will smash buy them. I'll buy them a little bit at a time. Michael Saylor will go get money for free from somewhere to buy them. And like, we'll take Satoshi's coins, and he will only be able to do that one time because he created a form of currency that you can only do that once. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. And like you say, it would only be less than 5%, 1/20th, 1/21st of the whole value. So even that would not be enough to flooding the market in that way would not be enough to completely undermine the other 95% of coins and value. Yeah, especially hodlers, and then I think people would rush in to buy it if it dipped again. I mean, it's just you can see it. People, I know everyone's probably like, oh, I should have gotten in 5 years ago. Oh, I should have gotten in 10 years ago. Oh, I should have gotten in 3 years ago. And there's a Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree is 30 years ago. The second best time is now, and because people, they buy in now, like you guys are doing, like I'm doing. And then when it's at 200,000, 300,000 a Bitcoin, the people then will be saying, oh, I should have gotten in when it was 90 or something,
And I tell you what, for the three of us that are stacking up sats to create that generational wealth for our lineage, I mean, wise is he who plants a tree, the shade of which he'll never see. So let's recap our conversation here with John. John got his start in, it sounded like engineering. MIT. There was like a musical, electronic music engineering situation there. There was some, working with musicians, producing that type of thing. And we're going to get you connected, John, to number 16, Miles. He was an early Bitcoiner and is now off to Mexico to live on a 1 acre compound of his own building that includes the largest private recording studio in Central America. You two can absolutely jam on that music space. And we really focused on I guess the major theme for me of today's episode was this concept of like, what money are we using? Are we using money that is inflating, that people are saying is good to inflate? Oh, we've got a master plan where the thing that y'all work for is going to get worse and worse over time. How's that sound? Yes, sir. Please sign me up. What a great way to live my life. I can't wait to go through 3 rounds of my value going to nothing. I mean, we're literally being forced to go broke 3 times in our lives without even knowing it. I am literally enraged thinking about this, John. I can't really, that just makes me so angry that we are in this space. But, you helped us to learn more about Bitcoin itself. What separates Bitcoin from fiat currency, what separates Bitcoin from gold even, and the different layers on top of which we kind of built up over time with gold, and then we're papering over it, etc. And I think the big message for our listeners out here today, John, is that doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter whether you figure this out early or late, just go start stacking your sats. Yeah. Get out of the world of melting ice cubes and into the world of Bitcoin, which is, Bitcoin is permafrost, baby. So somebody make that a t-shirt and we'll put it in our merchandise store. So we're going to make you an offer here today, John. But you know what? Before we do that, tell us a little bit about your business, your book, where people can find you. Where should our Satillionaires go to engage with you?
Well, the best place is I have a business teaching people business skills. So I think that's always a good thing to add to anybody's skill stack, is some business skills for entrepreneurship, marketing, finance, all those kind of economics, to understand the world. Those kind of skills are sort of permafrost. They're not going to change. We're always thinking, wow, how the world's going to change and all. Having your own side hustle, having a business, some way that you're having money coming in, extra money that then you can use to invest or whatever, is really important. So I have a company called MBA ASAP. So it's like MBA, Master of Business Administration type of skill sets, ASAP, as soon as possible. And I have online courses and books. And the best place to reach me is my website, mba-asap.com. And there you can sign up for my newsletter and stuff like that. And anybody who emails me or anything through there, I answer all calls and answer all emails. And there's a little video ask where they can send me a video message and stuff. So that's the best way to get in touch with me. I've got 63 books that I published, and they're all on Amazon, just under my name, and a book on, crypto basically, and Bitcoin. And I also have a course on that too in my course selection on Udemy. So yeah, that's the best place to sort of to reach me and get in. So thanks very much.
7 nines worth of books. Did you hear that? Yeah. 7 nines worth of books. I'm just so angry at the fiat monetary system that I have a headache now. But and one thing that I also felt was kind of an interesting take for me was your idea of entrepreneurialism. We should include that in the recap, where if you're going to go to work for someone else, you must be willing to pass on the value that you create beyond your salary to them as your employer. And then, the only way for you to capture the value you're creating above and beyond what you're getting paid is to work for yourself. So that was pretty cool. So we're going to make you an offer here in a minute, John. But first, we want to take a minute here with our friend Bonzo, the Bitcoin laser-eyed tub of Ithaca hummus, to try a flavor of hummus here. And, we've got for you today black bean, which I believe is Chris's newest flavor, right?
Yes, it is.
Black
That's
bean.
Right. Yeah.
So when did black bean hit the shelves?
About 3 months ago.
Wow. Okay. So very new. And John is in New Mexico. So, he, after he's done watching us eat this, I know he's going to say, gosh, I want some of this hummus as well. Where can he go to get Ithaca hummus in New Mexico?
Well, Whole Foods and Sprouts.
Yeah.
And are there AJs in New Mexico?
No,
that's
but Whole Foods and Sprouts there are.
Super. Yeah, this flavor is available at Whole Foods.
Oh, I will definitely go and get some. You kidding?
It's delicious.
So I'm going to serve as your Bruce Willis style surrogate here, John, where I'm going to taste this black bean hummus on your behalf. So I got a nice fat glob here on this woven wheat. You can see a lot of black specks all the way through it.
Black bean.
I love hummus. I love black beans. So that's great. I mean, you guys are OG entrepreneurs here, man. That's incredible. Fantastic work.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Never gets old. What do you taste?
It's almost like a little bit of spice right at the beginning.
Yep.
Then it's like a full black bean flavor. And then it's back to a little bit of, I don't know, is it like a cayenne or what's the spice?
I think we put a little jalapeno in there, actually.
Sweet.
And John, my mouth tasted like toothpaste, directly before trying that, because I brushed my teeth pretty close to when we came into the studio. And, a lot of times if your mouth tastes like toothpaste and you're like, hey, here's some orange juice. You're like, and you're like, oh no. And you drink it. You're like, oh God. And the first 2 swallows are horrible. And you have to kind of deal with that, right? This black bean dip just sliced through my toothpaste mouth immediately.
Demolished it.
It absolutely destroyed toothpaste mouth the same way Bitcoin destroys fiat currency. So that's a mouthful of flavor. And we hope that you will run out and
I will
grab a
tub. I'm going to get all the flavors. I'm going to go look and get them all.
Yeah.
So good.
So now we'd like to make you your offer here.
All right, John. So here at Sat Chats, we like to exchange value for value. And so you came on the show today. You were generous with your time for both Stuart and I and our audience. So we want to give you the choice of $50 in nation state paper, USD.
Government we owe ourselves. I would say it's an IOU, but it's a we owe us.
Yeah.
It's a government we owe us. Man, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So angry. All right. Or you can have $50 worth of sats. And I've got the Clark Moody dashboard right here behind me. You might not be able to see it, but the price of one whole Bitcoin right now is $85,500, which translates to 1,170 sats per dollar. So 1,170 sats times $50 is 58,500 sats. I mean, sats.
Give him the sats. We immediately got 2 thumbs up.
Yeah,
Let's go. Come on, John. That's what I'm talking about. We don't need any of what, I mean, we don't even need whatever that is. We don't even know what that is. Just get that back underneath the microphone so I don't even have to see it. And we are so pumped that you chose the sats today, John. For all the satillionaires who are following along at home, that brings this show's scoreboard to 27 guests choosing sats, 2 choosing cash. So we're 27 and 2. Not bad.
Not bad at all.
Not bad. So thanks again for coming on the show today, John. He's got his website for you all, mbaasap.com. Did I get that right?
But no, mba-asap.com.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris. Yep. Dash in
There
there.
we go. And we'll have a link in the show notes as well. If you made it this far, give us your value for our value. If the fiat monetary system has now, if your eyes have been opened to the fact that you're going to go bankrupt 3 times in your life without even knowing it, hit that like and subscribe. Comment down below how this makes you feel to learn this thing. Share it with your friends and family so that they can see for themselves what is being done to them. Help us reach 999 plus 1 subscribers on YouTube. We will unlock a live show Friday mornings for all of you, 10 a.m. Eastern. John is going to be in his nice, comfy chair there in New Mexico. He's going to be in the chat. He's going to be hitting us with some MBA-style teachings. We're all going to be learning from him live. So help us get there as soon as possible. And remember, Sat Chats is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as financial advice. Also, our guests' views are their own. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.